to address the revolutionary changes in B2B CX expectations through embedded finance. Again, feel free to submit any questions as we go through the chat function directly to myself, though we will be having dedicated time for Q&A at the end. Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker for the session, who is Michelle Form, the VP of Global Marketing with TreviPay. Michelle, thank you very much for joining us today. With that, I will pass the floor to you.
Thank you, Ben. I'm going to pull up my screen and share it. Let me know if you are not seeing.
That's perfect, thanks.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon and welcome to today's discussion on Beyond the Buy button. We're going to dive in this afternoon on the changes occurring in B2B commerce and the customer experience that's driving that strategy. We all know that payments is a strategy that is critical to customer experience. Consumers have shown considerable interest in using click to purchase buy buttons, that really easy, frictionless one button click, it's in your cart and it's on the way to you. These allow us to quickly complete our e-commerce transactions. In a recent payment study of 111 companies, it was found that buy buttons can significantly reduce checkout times, with consumers spending on average 99 seconds on checkout when leveraging the feature compared to 176 seconds when not using it. The share of e-tailers that offered buy buttons also rose last year to 76% in Q4 of 2020, showing that the pandemic has rapidly accelerated this movement. But while simply adding a buy button and more payment adoption methods to the checkout menu might be the end goal, it's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to really executing on this strategy. What lies beneath this objective is a more comprehensive embedded payment strategy that removes the friction and the pain points of the transaction. As such, embedded payments is all the plumbing and behind the scenes processes and tools that make the Buy Now button for B2B buyers seem effortless and friction-free. The growth trajectory is staggering. As more volume moves online, the total addressable market for B2B e-commerce will top 7 trillion globally by 2030. We have seen massive shifts in channel adoption grow during the pandemic, but there is another side of this move online. B2B customer expectations have shifted dramatically. So where are we today? We have already well on our way to over 1 trillion in B2B sales that are taking place online, and we see that trend accelerating. According to Digital Commerce 360, as many as 57% of B2B buyers have made at least one purchase online during the pandemic. As B2B buyers' level of comfort grows, and this channel shift could prove much more lucrative for vendors that are well positioned to cater towards digital-first purchasing. Additionally, Digital Commerce 360 also reports that online B2B marketplaces could facilitate 3.6 trillion worth of sales by 2024. We're seeing a very real shift in B2B buyer behavior away from that in-person led interactions to digital-first interactions. In a recent report, Forrester's principal analyst, Jay McBain, wrote, 3 years of consumer behavior change was squeezed into 1 year of 2020. He goes on to say that that delta between B2C and B2B buyers has collapsed during the pandemic. B2B buyers who require a variety of payment options, including net terms, are beginning to expect that purchase be transacted with the ease and convenience of an Uber payment and across all the channels in which they purchase. As a result, in the face of this change and in the face of the feedback of your customers' expectations, they've changed forever. The competition to own the B2B customer has intensified. B2B companies must develop a future-ready and resilient payment strategy that allows them to accomplish these 4 goals. Earn loyalty and repeat purchases. This is all about being the easiest and best supplier to your customer, and we'll talk a little bit more later on how to accomplish this. Be able to run and scale your operations at a lower cost. Online is a lower cost sales channel, but you should work to make sure you can achieve payment support and collections process as part of the overall customer experience. Increased revenue potential. This is all about digital first customers acquisition and then retention by being the supplier that's easiest to deal with and ultimately the supplier of choice. Improve your cash flow by being made on time and early. This will allow you to focus on how you grow your business. I believe we have a poll that's supposed to be at the end of this. Is that correct, Ben?
Yeah, I've just launched the poll, so that should be showing on everyone's screen now. I'll just give everyone sort of 10 to 15 seconds to vote on that, and then I will display the results. And yeah, I'm seeing the first answers come in now, so we'll just give everyone 10 or so seconds. Great, so most of those are coming in. I'll just give everyone five more seconds. If you've not voted, it should have popped up directly on your screen, but yeah, seeing most of the responses come in. So we'll close that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm sharing those results now for everyone.
Great, so it looks like the majority of the people have 1 to 3 payment options. Looks like that's an opportunity for growth in that area. So if your customers don't already expect their B2B payments to be invisible, like they are in the consumer world, they soon will. Building that capability to deliver on this promise requires significant work, technical expertise, and a firm grasp of all of the costs that can arise. When B2B payments present more like B2C payments, it will meet the expectation of the digital first buyer. Everyone wants B2C to B2B to feel like B2C, but B2B is so much harder, as we all know. Why? Simply put, there are more stakeholders in both the seller and buyer organization that need to pair off with one another. Starting at the beginning, how do you onboard a new customer and offer them payment terms with a credit line? Is this digital first and transparent, or paper-based and opaque? Once the buyer is onboarded, your sales process needs to align with the buyer's procurement processes. Do they need a purchase order on every invoice? Your accounts receivable team will need to interact with the AP team of the buyers to ensure on-time payment so you can open up credit lines and allow customers to buy more. In addition to process alignment, B2B merchants must offer multiple ways for their customers to pay and the ease of one-click purchasing, offering the buyers immediate gratification as a contactless B2C transaction. One Forrester study found that organizations now offer 4.7 payment methods on average, over 50% currently offering traditional wire transfer, digital wallet payments, and traditional credit cards and real-time payment. So this is seems to be just a little bit higher than the payment method average that we have here. So again, some opportunities for strategies in 2022. The most effective in-bay payment experience makes a company easier to do business with by letting the buyer interact and transact on their preferred terms. Business customers prefer purchasing on terms and spend more frequently when they have a dedicated financial relationship and a line of credit with the supplier. And I'm using terms because I'm American and that's what we call it, but in the UK and Europe, it's trade credit. So forgive me for using my American vernacular. So moving on, instant decisioning on a credit line and the size of the credit line are key to B2B buyers and will help merchants attract the best type, namely those that are repeat. Having a dedicated financial relationship with your buyers, meaning an appropriately sized line of credit and payment terms or trade credit, coupled with a friction-free purchasing process, drives up the total order values. The combined result of these 4 things is an increase in the share of your customer's wallet and hence an increase in loyalty. A Forrester study found more than 50% of sellers were already offering installment plans from their credit department, subscription or consumption-based terms. And many of these were offered by a fintech partner. All businesses are in the midst of a digital transformation, which has significantly accelerated over the last 18 months. This means that B2B buyers expect a digital-first experience, which means no paper forms or slow manual processes to onboard a new buyer. It also means that an opaque process that takes a long time to underwrite a new buyer and provide them with a credit line is no longer acceptable. Customers want this to be real-time and transparent. A PDF invoice that is emailed to a customer is not a digital-first process. Increasingly, buyers want these invoices loaded directly in their procure-to-pay or ERP platforms. In many cases, this might mean that unless the supplier has an embedded payments partner, that they must figure out how to integrate into these platforms on their own. Manually reconciling bank deposits and applying cash to paid invoices is no longer scalable and does not free up credit lines for your customers soon enough. The more digital first a seller is, the more likely they are to be able to support new needs to their B2B buyers, and also more likely they are to run these processes at a lower overall cost than sellers who are not digitally enabled. So we're ready for our second poll, which is how much of your AR and onboarding will be digital in 2022?
Great. So again, that should have popped up on screen for everyone. We'll just give everyone 15 seconds to answer that. I'm seeing most of the answers come through already. All right. Just give another 5 seconds. Most of the answers coming through, but I'll end that poll shortly and share the results. So closing it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So it looks like near a little over 42% of their onboarding will be digital. So again, great opportunities for improvement in 2022 to meet those expectations of the buyer. And then there's some really great companies that are out in the lead with 76 to 100% of that being done digitally. And I would guess that those are probably leaders in their industry with a remarkable competitive advantage. As more interactions move online, it's increasingly important to validate customers. Oh, I'm sorry. I moved on to a different slide. Smart, innovative B2B brands are designing its strategy to help businesses improve cash flow by allowing business buyers to receive invoices daily, weekly, or monthly and make payments on terms that they can control. It's also critical to allow for ways to add data like PO numbers to invoices and support integrations in the procure-to-pay and ERP platforms. While this example oversimplifies the requirements of a sophisticated B2B buyer, it is an example of how aligning your invoicing process and providing data that accounts payable or procurement will likely make you the easiest supplier to engage with, and as a result, increase your share of wallet with your customers. If you have hundreds of customers who are placing these demands on you as a seller, then working with an embedded payments provider or using technologies can mask the significant amount of transactional plumbing that must be installed and orchestrated behind the scenes. As more interactions move online, it's increasingly important to validate customers are who they say they are. This is so much more, there is so much more information online that bad actors can access to determine who the officers of companies are, the company address, and even the full legal name of the company and its articles of incorporation. This growing trend in business identity theft as a seller requires you as a seller to be increasingly more aware of the risks of application fraud, namely someone applying for a credit line and masquerading as a real business. Balancing this arms race with bad actors can be a challenge for sellers, and it is part of why working with sophisticated fintech and embedded payment partners can help a seller scale their trade credit programs without significantly increasing their risk. Lastly, customers' accounts can be compromised and key information changed, like bank account details or even delivery addresses. Make certain that you as a seller are using techniques like multi-factor authentication to validate the changes into this sort of critical data and protect yourself. So it looks like we're ready for our final poll. As more transactions happen online, do you plan to increase your fraud detection processes in 2022?
Great. So again, that's popped up for everyone. If I just give everyone a few moments to put their answers in. Thanks. I'm seeing most of the answers come in. Great. I'll close that down and share the results in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So it looks like a little over a third of the people are looking to add more fraud detection processes in 2022, with some room for improvement for the remaining 2/3. So moving on to our last slide, brand loyalty has been the standard for how sellers try to maintain it and differentiate themselves from the competition. The revolutionary change to customer experience, engagement, and convenience embraced by the rising digital generation and the shifts accelerated by COVID has seen a move away from brand loyalty and move to experience loyalty. Assuming similar pricing and product service quality, the new way to differentiate is to make the experience of buying from you easier than your competitors. In many cases, the best way to accomplish this goal is with partners who focus on streamlining and eliminating friction from all of the steps in an order to cash process. Sellers that meet these new expectations will establish stickiness and loyalty with their customers and enjoy cost savings, increased revenue potential, and better cash flow. I'm happy to take any questions.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Michelle. Yeah, we've got time for a few questions. Does anyone have anything that they would like to ask Michelle about the presentation? Just to start thing, there was a couple of questions that sort of came to my mind as you were speaking. I guess when we talk about, you've obviously sort of shared around the differences between B2B and B2C. I guess I'd like to ask, how do you build true loyalty in B2B in a digital environment? What works, what doesn't work?
Sure, that's a really great question, Ben. It's really everything from the instant decisioning on the credit line and the size of the credit lines that are key to a B2B buyer that will help you attract and retain those buyers. When you have a one-to-one line of credit and you've reduced the friction in the processing, in the purchase processing, and you give them the type of payment plans that they would like, whether it's 30-day trade credit, 45, 60 installment plans like we've seen in B2C with the buy now, pay later, making yourself easy to do business with from the moment you're checking out online, whether you're working with a salesperson or for those retailers who have a large contingency of B2B buyers, even reducing the friction and enabling them to purchase in store. Sometimes that's with a branded credit card, but there is mobile apps that can allow for a very frictionless payment process with that multi-factor authentication, pricing, the pre-negotiated pricing, limits on what each person is able to buy. So if you remove all of that friction behind the scenes and underneath that iceberg, really positions you ahead of your competitors, because we all know that we want to make our purchases and move on and not have a lot of follow-up to process that invoice if you're a buyer, especially if it's on a credit card. They're not always the right payment instrument because there's a lot that the buyer has to process with expense reports, going to AP, not having the right amount of data at the SKU level in order for the accounts receivable department to then associate those purchases with the right department.
Sure, it's fantastic. And I guess just following from that, so I'm interested how do, I guess, B2B buyers who are digital first, what do they expect, and what advice would you give the audience in order to deliver on those expectations?
I would say that those buyers are going to require those variety of payments, so that the attendees today that have plans to increase the payment options are going to position them well against their competition. And those payment options, including net terms, and making it as convenient as it is to order, excuse me, an Uber and then step out of that Uber at your destination. So if your customers don't already expect the B2B payments to be as invisible and transparent as they are in their B2C, they soon will start demanding that.
Sure, that makes perfect sense. Any further questions for Michelle? Anything else? I suspect everyone might be getting ready for the luncheon break.
Yeah, I'm the only person between them and their lunch. Not a good place to be.
Well, fantastic. Michelle, what I'd recommend, if you could just put if you're happy to do so, to put your email address in the chat function, so that anyone who wishes to reach out to you sort of post-event with any questions to follow up can do so. But otherwise, yeah, I think, thanks a lot for that. Really appreciate you taking the time to put that together. A great presentation. And yeah, anyone who wishes to reach out would really encourage them to do so. So on that note, we will be now having a coffee break. So I hope everyone's enjoyed the session so far this morning. We'll be having